Nobody remembered who first said the words. "Don't move." By the time those words reached every terrified camper, it was already too late. The 6 friends had spent nearly 8 hours hiking through Black Hollow Forest, a forgotten stretch of wilderness that didn't appear on most digital maps. The trail had ended hours ago, yet strange stone markers continued deeper into the trees, each carved with symbols no one recognized. Lena laughed as she photographed another weathered stone. Probably ancient tribal art. Noah frowned. Or warnings. The joke died quickly. The forest had become unnaturally quiet. No birds. No insects. Not even wind. It felt as though the entire woodland had stopped breathing. Mason checked his phone. No signal. "Same," Olivia whispered. "Let's camp here," Ethan suggested. "We'll find our way back in the morning." No one argued. As darkness swallowed the trees, they pitched their tents beside an enormous dead oak whose roots twisted across the earth like giant skeletal fingers. The fire refused to burn properly. Every log hissed, producing thick gray smoke instead of flames. A foul odor drifted through the campsite. Rotting meat. Old blood. Something damp and ancient. Lena covered her nose. "Do you smell that?" Nobody answered. They all did. Around midnight, Noah woke to a soft clicking sound. Click. Click. Click click click. It wasn't nearby. It came from everywhere. Slowly he unzipped the tent. Moonlight spilled across the clearing. Nothing. The others slept peacefully. Then. Click. Something moved high above. His flashlight beam swept into the branches. Empty. The sound stopped. Noah laughed nervously. Just squirrels. Then a drop of thick liquid landed on his shoulder. Warm. Sticky. He wiped it away. His fingers became black. Not mud. Blood. Fresh blood. His heartbeat exploded inside his chest. The flashlight climbed higher. 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 Until the beam revealed dozens of enormous strands stretching between the trees. Webs. Not ordinary webs. Each strand was thicker than climbing rope. The forest canopy wasn't made of branches anymore. It was wrapped inside a gigantic web that disappeared into darkness. Noah staggered backward. What the? Something shifted above him. 8 tiny reflections blinked open. Then 16. Then dozens. Eyes. Watching. The flashlight flickered. Everything vanished. He stood frozen. Silence. Then. Tap. Something touched the ground behind him. He spun around. Nothing. Tap. Closer. Tap. Closer again. His breathing became frantic. Guys? Nobody answered. Tap. A long shadow slid behind Ethan's tent. Far too large to belong to any animal Noah had ever seen. He rushed toward the tents. Lena. Wake up. Everyone stumbled outside. What happened? Mason groaned. Noah pointed upward. The trees. They looked. The webs were gone. Only branches swayed beneath the moonlight. Olivia sighed. You had a nightmare. No. He held up his bloody hand. This came from above. The blood had disappeared. His skin was perfectly clean. Lena forced a smile. Stress can make you imagine things. Before Noah could answer, a scream echoed through the forest. Not human. Not animal. It sounded like hundreds of voices crying at once before suddenly being cut off. Everyone froze. Then they heard footsteps. Heavy. Slow. Crunch. 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 Something circled the camp beyond the darkness. Mason grabbed the flashlight. The beam revealed only trees. Nothing else. Crunch. Now behind them. Crunch. Now to the left. Always just outside the light. Then silence. Ethan whispered, "Who's out there?" No reply. Instead, every tree around the clearing shook. Leaves rained down. The ground trembled. A massive shape crossed between two trunks nearly 50 meters away. It moved with impossible speed. Too many legs. Too many joints. Too many eyes. No one could clearly see it. Their minds refused to understand what had passed before them. Olivia began crying. "We need to leave." Mason grabbed the map. "We don't even know which direction we came from." Then Lena noticed something beneath the dead oak. A skeleton. Human. Half buried beneath the roots. Its skull faced the campsite. Its jaw hung open forever. Around its neck hung a rusted metal tag. Only 2 words remained visible beneath decades of dirt. "Don't move." The clicking returned. This time, it came from directly above them. The clicking above them grew louder. Click. Click click. Click. No one dared look up. Every instinct screamed to run, yet something far older than fear whispered the opposite. Stay still. The moon disappeared behind a drifting cloud, plunging the campsite into darkness. The fire died with a hiss, as if an invisible hand had smothered it. Then, a voice came from the trees. "Don't move." It sounded like an old man gasping through broken lungs. Ethan spun toward the sound. "Who's there?" No answer. Instead, another voice echoed from the opposite direction. "Don't move." This one belonged to a child. Then another. A woman. A teenager. Dozens of voices repeated the same warning from every corner of the forest. "Don't move. Don't move. Don't move." Lena's breathing became ragged. "They're messing with us." But no one knew better. None of those voices sounded alive. Suddenly, Mason's flashlight flickered back to life. The beam swept upward. Everyone gasped. Suspended nearly 30 feet above them, wrapped in thick white silk, were human-shaped cocoons. Some looked fresh. Others were little more than yellowed bones trapped inside layers of webbing. One cocoon twitched. Olivia covered her mouth to stop herself from screaming. It's moving." The cocoon jerked again. A weak, muffled cry escaped from inside. Someone was still alive. "We have to help them," Ethan whispered. Ignoring Noah's protests, he grabbed a fallen branch and climbed onto the twisted roots of the dead oak. The moment his foot left the ground, the forest fell completely silent. No clicking. No wind. Nothing. The silence was worse than any scream. Then, something enormous unfolded from the darkness above. It didn't climb. It descended. 8 legs, each as thick as tree trunks, lowered themselves one by one without making a sound. Its body was covered in black armor that looked more like ancient stone than flesh. Long strands of silver web hung from its abdomen, dripping onto the forest floor. Its eyes. There were far too many. Some glowed pale white. Others reflected crimson. A few looked almost human. The creature never blinked. It simply watched. Ethan froze. The spider froze. For one endless heartbeat, neither moved. Then Ethan whispered, "Run." He took one step. The monster vanished. There was no warning. No leap. No roar. Only a blur. A deafening crack shattered the silence. Ethan disappeared into the darkness. His flashlight spun through the air before crashing into the dirt. The beam illuminated a nearby tree. Fresh blood painted the bark. Nothing else remained. Olivia screamed. Lena grabbed her arm. No. Every voice in the forest exploded at once. Don't move. The monstrous clicking returned, now circling them from every direction. Noah understood. It hunts movement, he whispered. Mason's hands trembled violently. You're guessing. Noah slowly pointed toward the blood-soaked tree. If it hunted by sight, we'd already be dead. As if proving him right. The creature emerged from behind a massive pine only 20 feet away. It stared directly at them. Its countless eyes never left their faces. Yet it did nothing. Because no one moved. Minutes crawled by. Sweat rolled down their skin. Mosquitoes landed on their necks. No one dared brush them away. The prehistoric predator remained perfectly still. Waiting. Testing. Then a tiny forest mouse darted across the leaves. The spider struck. The animal vanished so fast that only a burst of red mist remained. The creature returned to its place as though nothing had happened. Noah finally understood the first rule of Black Hollow Forest. It didn't care who you were. It didn't care how afraid you were. It only cared about one thing. Movement. And somewhere deep in the darkness, hundreds of clicking sounds answered in unison. The giant spider was not alone. No one slept. They stood frozen in the clearing until dawn, their muscles trembling from exhaustion. The giant creature had disappeared into the darkness, but none of them believed it had gone far. The first ray of sunlight finally pierced the trees. The clicking stopped. Almost instantly. As if daylight itself had forced the monster to retreat. Noah swallowed hard. This is our chance. No one argued. They abandoned their tents, backpacks, and supplies, taking only a bottle of water, a compass, and Mason's flashlight. Every second spent in that clearing felt like a death sentence. The forest looked different in daylight. The trees leaned inward, their trunks twisted into unnatural shapes. White webs clung to branches high above, shimmering in the morning light like frozen rivers. Then Lena noticed footprints. Human footprints. Hundreds of them. They all led deeper into the forest. None led back out. Olivia whispered, people kept walking, but nobody ever returned. Hours passed. The compass spun in circles. The sun never seemed to move. Every direction looked exactly the same. They weren't lost anymore. The forest was keeping them. Suddenly Mason stopped. There's a cabin. Hidden beneath vines stood an ancient wooden cabin, half swallowed by the woods. Its windows were boarded shut, and strange symbols had been carved into every wall. The front door hung open. Inside, dust covered everything. A rusted lantern. Broken furniture. Rotting books. And dozens of newspaper clippings pinned across one wall. Lena brushed away years of dust. The headline sent a chill through everyone. Family of 5 vanishes during camping trip. Search team disappears without a trace. Local legend claims the forest is cursed. There were dates stretching back more than a century. People had been disappearing here for generations. Noah found an old leather journal on the table. Its pages were brittle with age. The final entries were barely readable. It isn't an animal. It remembers. It learns our voices. If it catches you, it doesn't eat you immediately. The handwriting suddenly changed, becoming shaky and desperate. It puts thoughts inside your head. It makes you hear people you love. It wants you to move. The last page contained only 3 words. Don't trust anyone. Silence filled the cabin. Then. Knock. 3 slow knocks echoed from the front door. Everyone stared. No one had moved. Knock. Knock. Olivia whispered, "Please tell me that's one of us." Noah slowly approached the doorway. Outside stood Ethan. Covered in blood. His clothes were shredded, but he was alive. "I escaped," he whispered. His voice cracked with pain. "It couldn't kill me." Olivia burst into tears. "Ethan." She rushed toward him. Noah grabbed her arm. "Wait." Ethan smiled weakly. "Please, help me." Something felt wrong. There wasn't a single wound on him. Only blood. Too much blood. Not his. Noah remembered the journal. "It learns our voices." "Ethan." Noah said quietly. "What's my sister's name?" Silence. Ethan blinked. Then smiled again. I don't remember." Noah stepped backward. "My sister died when I was 6. The smile vanished. Every bone in Ethan's body cracked at once. His arms bent backward. His neck twisted completely around. His mouth stretched wider, and wider, until it split open to his ears. Inside his throat. Tiny white spiders poured onto the porch. The thing wearing Ethan's face let out a deafening chorus of clicking sounds. The cabin exploded with movement. The walls shook. The roof groaned. Outside, hundreds of enormous shadows descended through the trees. The giant spider had not come alone. Its children had found them. And this time, there was nowhere left to run. The cabin exploded into chaos. The creature wearing Ethan's face lunged forward, its body splitting apart like rotten fabric. Thousands of pale spiders poured from the empty shell, flooding across the porch in a living wave. "Run!" Noah shouted. The 4 survivors burst through the cabin's back door just as the walls collapsed behind them. The forest shook. Branches snapped overhead. The deafening clicking returned, not from one direction, but from everywhere. They ran blindly until Mason tripped over a hidden root. The ground beneath him cracked. Before anyone could grab him, the earth gave way. No. All 4 plunged into darkness. They crashed onto cold, damp stone. For a moment, nobody moved. Then Noah switched on the flashlight. His stomach twisted. They weren't in a cave. They were inside something built from webs. The walls were layered with thick white silk, hardened over centuries until they resembled stone. Skeletons were fused into the walls, humans, wolves, deer, and creatures none of them could identify. Some skeletons had far too many limbs. Others had skulls unlike any animal that should exist. Olivia whispered, "How old is this place?" No one answered. The beam drifted farther. The tunnel stretched endlessly beneath the forest. Every few feet, enormous eggs hung from the ceiling. Some were as large as cars. Others were human-sized. One egg twitched. Then another. A crack appeared across its surface. Lena backed away. No. No. The shell burst open. A spider the size of a dog crawled out, its body glistening with clear slime. It turned its 8 black eyes toward them. Then another egg cracked. And another. Within seconds, dozens of hatchlings emerged. They didn't attack. They simply watched. Waiting. Listening. The clicking echoed through the tunnels. A signal. The mother was coming. "Move!" Noah hissed. They sprinted through the winding passage as the hatchlings chased them, their legs scraping against the webbed floor with a sickening rhythm. The tunnel opened into an enormous underground chamber. Everyone stopped. In the center stood a gigantic stone pillar wrapped in ancient silk. Bound to it were dozens of people. Some were little more than skeletons. Others were still alive. Their eyes were open. Their lips trembled. One old man lifted his head with great effort. "You shouldn't have come." His voice was barely audible. "It keeps us alive." "Why?" Lena asked. The old man's eyes filled with tears. "So, we can remember." Noah frowned. "Remember what?" Before the man could answer, his expression changed. His face froze in horror. "Behind you." The clicking stopped. Complete silence. Noah turned slowly. The prehistoric spider stood at the entrance of the chamber. It looked even larger underground. Its body nearly touched the cavern ceiling. Its countless eyes reflected the flashlight like rows of tiny moons. Then something impossible happened. The creature spoke. Not with its mouth. Inside their minds. "Do not fear me." The voice was ancient. Cold. Patient. Fear forgetting. A flood of images slammed into Noah's mind. Primitive humans running through these same woods. A monstrous spider hunting them beneath a blood-red sky. Civilizations rising, then vanishing. Wars. Plagues. Empires turning to dust. The creature had watched it all. It was older than recorded history. Older than language. Older than memory itself. The vision ended. Olivia collapsed, screaming as blood trickled from her nose. The spider took one slow step forward. Then another. Every movement made the cavern tremble. The old prisoner whispered his final warning. "It doesn't just eat people. It keeps every mind it has ever taken." Suddenly, hundreds of human voices echoed from the darkness. Children. Parents. Soldiers. Travelers. All speaking at once. Not ghosts. Memories. The monster was carrying thousands of stolen lives inside its own mind. And now, it had begun making room for 4 more. The voices would not stop. They echoed through the cavern in 1,000 different languages, overlapping until they became an unbearable roar. Some cried for help. Others laughed. A few whispered prayers long forgotten by history. Then Noah realized something horrifying. None of the voices belonged to ghosts. They belonged to the people trapped inside the creature's mind. The spider had stolen them. Every memory. Every fear. Every final scream. It carried centuries of human lives within itself. The ancient monster took another slow step. Its countless eyes fixed on the 4 survivors. One eye blinked. Inside its black pupil, Noah saw his childhood bedroom. His mother's smile. His 10th birthday. His father's face. "No." Noah whispered. The memories weren't his anymore. The creature was showing them back to him. It had already entered his mind. Lena suddenly gasped. "Dad?" She stepped forward. Noah grabbed her arm. "There is nobody there." But Lena wasn't looking at the spider. She was staring into empty darkness. "Dad, you came back." Tears streamed down her face. She had lost her father years ago in a climbing accident. Now she could see him standing only a few feet away. Smiling. Holding out his hand. "My little girl," the voice said gently. "I'm waiting." Noah couldn't hear the words. Only Lena could. She pulled away from him. "I have to go." "No." She took one step. The spider moved. One enormous leg struck the ground between them, cutting Lena off from the others. Thick silk exploded from its abdomen, wrapping around her waist before she could scream. She was yanked upward into the darkness. "Lena!" Olivia cried. Her scream echoed through the cavern. Above them came the sound of silk tightening. Then silence. Noah looked up. A new cocoon hung from the ceiling. Inside it, Lena's frightened eyes stared back at them. She was alive. Unable to move. Unable to speak. Forced to watch. The old prisoner began sobbing. "It feeds on hope." Mason clenched his fists. "We can't leave her." "You already have." The old man's voice cracked. "Once it wraps you, your body lives. But your mind belongs to it." Suddenly, Lena's cocoon twitched. Her lips moved. At first, her voice sounded normal. Then dozens of other voices joined hers. Men. Women. Children. All speaking through the same mouth. "Stay. Come closer. We're lonely." Olivia covered her ears. "It's making her talk." "No," the old prisoner whispered. "It's making everyone it has ever taken talk." The cocoon split open just enough for dozens of tiny white spiders to crawl across Lena's face. Her eyes never closed. She couldn't blink. She couldn't scream. She could only cry. The giant spider watched without emotion. Patient. Ancient. Certain. Then the ground began to shake. At the far end of the cavern, a massive wall of webbing slowly tore apart. Behind it lay an impossible chamber. A graveyard of civilizations. Broken stone idols. Rusted swords. Ancient bones. Modern backpacks. A crashed helicopter. Fragments from thousands of years, all collected in one place. The spider had been hunting since before human history, and it had never left its forest. The forest had grown around it. Noah stared at the endless mountain of remains and understood the terrible truth. This wasn't a nest. It was a museum. Every victim was a trophy. Every memory was a collection. Every cocoon was another exhibit in an endless archive of fear. Then the ancient spider lifted its head. For the first time, it opened its jaws. Instead of a roar, one sentence emerged in thousands of human voices speaking perfectly together. "Don't move, and you will live forever." The survivors stood frozen. Not because they believed it, but because, deep inside, they feared the creature might be telling the truth. The monster's words echoed through the underground chamber long after its jaws closed. "Don't move, and you will live forever." Noah finally understood. The cocoons weren't graves. They were prisons. The victims never truly died. Their hearts continued beating. Their minds remained awake. Century after century. Unable to blink. Unable to scream. Unable to escape. The spider wasn't preserving bodies. It was preserving consciousness. An eternity of silent terror. The old prisoner coughed violently, blood staining the web around his chest. "There is one way." Noah knelt beside him. "Tell me." The old man's trembling finger pointed toward the center of the cavern. Wrapped beneath layers of ancient silk was a massive black stone unlike anything they had ever seen. Strange symbols pulsed faintly across its surface. "It came with that." "The spider?" The prisoner nodded. "It fell from the sky, before humans remembered the stars. A meteor." The creature wasn't simply prehistoric. It was something older. Something that had never belonged to Earth. "The stone." The old man whispered. "Break it, and the web dies." Before Noah could ask another question, the prisoner's eyes widened in horror. Behind them. Click. 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 The mother spider was returning. Olivia, Mason, and Noah raced toward the black stone. The spider descended from the ceiling, each thunderous step sending shockwaves through the cavern. Its children poured from every tunnel, surrounding the chamber like a living tide. There was nowhere left to run. Mason spotted an old miner's pickaxe lying among the bones. "I'll distract it." "No!" Noah shouted. But Mason was already running. He screamed at the creature, swinging the pickaxe against the cavern wall. The metallic clang echoed like a gunshot. The spider turned. Every eye fixed on him. "Come on!" Mason yelled. For 1 second. The ancient predator hesitated. Then it attacked. Its strike was impossibly fast. A wall of silk erupted from its abdomen, wrapping Mason from head to toe before he could take another breath. The cocoon slammed against the cavern ceiling. Mason's muffled screams echoed through the webs. Then. Nothing. Only another motionless white cocoon hanging beside Lena's. Olivia broke down. "We're all going to die." "No," Noah said quietly. "We're ending this." He lifted the rusted pickaxe. The black stone stood only a few steps away. But between him and the meteor, the spider waited. Perfectly still. Watching. Waiting for movement. Noah remembered the first warning. Don't move. It wasn't advice for surviving. It was a rule of the hunt. Slowly. Painfully. He lowered the pickaxe. The spider remained motionless. He took one tiny step. Nothing. Another. Still nothing. He realized the creature attacked sudden movement. Careful, deliberate motion confused its instincts. Inch by inch, Noah approached the meteor while barely moving at all. Sweat dripped into his eyes. His muscles burned. The spider watched. Uncertain. 5 feet. 4. 3. The black stone pulsed beneath layers of ancient silk. Noah raised the pickaxe. The spider understood. A deafening shriek exploded through the cavern. Every hatchling charged at once. Noah swung. The pickaxe struck the meteor. Crack. A blinding blue light erupted through the cavern. Every web began to vibrate. The giant spider screamed, not in anger, but in agony. Cracks spread across its stone-like body. The cocoons hanging from the ceiling burst open. Lena and Mason crashed onto the ground, gasping for air. The voices inside the cavern became a hurricane of whispers. Thousands of trapped souls crying out together. The entire nest started collapsing. Massive chunks of rock rained from above. The old prisoner smiled for the first time. "You remembered." Then he closed his eyes forever. The meteor split completely in half. A wave of brilliant blue light consumed the darkness. The mother spider let out one final, earth-shaking scream. Then. Everything went black. Darkness. Noah couldn't feel his body. He couldn't hear. He couldn't breathe. For one endless moment, he thought he had become one of the trapped souls inside the web. Then. Rain. Cold drops struck his face. His eyes snapped open. Gray clouds drifted overhead. He was lying at the edge of Black Hollow Forest. Beside him were Olivia, Lena, and Mason, bruised, bleeding, but alive. The forest behind them was silent. No clicking. No webs. No giant spider. As if nothing had ever existed. Weeks later. The authorities searched the woods. They found no cave. No cabin. No skeletons. No webs. The forest seemed completely ordinary. The official report blamed dehydration, hallucinations, and panic. Nobody believed the survivors. How could they? There was no evidence. Except one thing. Every clock recovered from the campsite had stopped at 3:17 a.m. Every battery was completely drained. And none of the survivors could remember the 3 days they had supposedly spent inside the forest. 3 entire days. Gone. Months passed. The nightmares never stopped. Olivia woke every night to the sound of clicking outside her bedroom window. Lena refused to look into mirrors. Sometimes, just for a second, she saw dozens of tiny eyes staring back instead of her own reflection. Mason developed a terrifying habit. Whenever he became frightened, he froze completely. Sometimes for hours. He couldn't explain why. His body simply remembered. Noah suffered the worst. His memories began disappearing. At first, they were small things. A birthday. A phone number. The face of his first teacher. Then larger things. His childhood home. His father's voice. His mother's laughter. Each forgotten memory was replaced by something else. A dark cavern. Ancient webs. Endless clicking. It was as though another mind was quietly growing inside his own. One rainy evening, Noah discovered an old package on his doorstep. There was no return address. Inside was a leather journal. The same journal from the abandoned cabin. He had watched it burn. Yet here it was. Waiting. A new page had appeared at the end. Written in fresh black ink. If you are reading this, it escaped with you. Noah's blood turned to ice. He turned the page. Only one sentence was written there. It no longer lives beneath the forest. It lives inside the ones who survived. The lights in his house flickered. Click. 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 The sound came from upstairs. Slowly. Noah climbed the staircase. His bedroom door stood open. The room was empty. But the ceiling. The ceiling was covered in white silk. A single cocoon hung above his bed. It swayed gently. Something inside it moved. Who's there? Noah whispered. The cocoon split open. A shower of tiny white spiders rained onto the floor. They scattered into every shadow. Then, from somewhere behind him, a calm, ancient voice whispered directly into his ear. Don't move. Noah froze. A cold breath touched the back of his neck. He could hear slow clicking all around him. But he didn't turn. He didn't run. He didn't even blink. Morning came. The neighbors found Noah standing perfectly still in the middle of his bedroom. His eyes were open. His heart was beating. But he never spoke another word. Doctors called it a rare psychological collapse. No illness could explain why he remained frozen for the rest of his life. Sometimes, late at night, nurses swore they heard him whisper 2 words to anyone who came too close. Don't move. Years later, new campers began disappearing in forests across the country. Each campsite looked strangely familiar. No bodies. No footprints. Only strands of impossibly thick white web stretching high between the trees. And a weathered wooden sign nailed to a dead oak. Its faded letters carried the same warning that had echoed through history. Don't move. The end.